The morning started before sunrise, when the sky was still a deep blue and the streets were quiet. He unlocked the small, bright storefront and flipped on the lights one by one. Warm light fell over the steel tables, the brick smoker in the back, and the neatly stacked bags of wood. He washed his hands, tied his apron, and checked his list. Everything was ready because he had prepared it the night before. The spice rub in glass jars, the sauce that simmered low and slow, and the meat resting in the cooler, already marinated with care. He moved like he had practiced 1,000 times, steady and calm. This place was his dream, and he treated it with respect. He had loved barbecue since he was a boy. His father taught him how to be patient with food. "Good heat, good wood, and time," his father would say, tapping the lid of an old backyard smoker. He remembered family days when cousins laughed, music played softly, and everyone ate with joy. Those memories were the fire in his heart. He carried them into this new restaurant, which had taken every bit of savings he had. He had sold his old car, worked extra shifts, and learned to fix small things himself so he could save for the big things like the smoker and the health permits. The shop was on a corner across from a row of neat houses inside a gated neighborhood. The sidewalk outside his door felt open and friendly. There was a big window with a sign he painted himself, warm orange letters that said, "Corner Flame, BBQ." He chose that name because he wanted people to feel welcome around a warm corner, like a small home in the city. He had a few tables outside with red and white cloths and a chalkboard menu. The menu was simple: brisket, ribs, chicken, beans, slaw, cornbread, and his special sauce that had a hint of sweetness and a little kick at the end. He had done everything by the book. He spent long afternoons at city offices talking with the clerk about zoning rules, health inspections, and fire safety. He asked questions, listened carefully, and kept copies of every paper in a bright blue folder. The landlord, a kind man who ran a small pharmacy 2 blocks away, gave him a fair lease. The health inspector walked through the kitchen and nodded. The fire department came by to check the smoker placement and ventilation, and he showed them the plan he had drawn. When the final permit arrived, he held it like a diploma and smiled for a long time. On the first soft opening weekend, he invited friends and neighbors to taste the food and give feedback. The smell of smoke moved down the block like a friendly wave. People slowed as they walked, lifted their heads, and smiled. A teacher from the school down the street stopped by for a plate. A nurse on break ordered a sandwich and hummed as she ate on the curb, tapping her foot. A bus driver took ribs to go, promising to tell his route friends. Children laughed at the way the cornbread crumbled like little golden cushions on their plates. He stood behind the counter and watched carefully. He noted what people loved, what they left behind, and what they asked for. He wanted to learn fast and do better every day. By the second week, he opened regular hours. Lunch rush came like a pleasant storm. He moved with purpose, cutting slices of brisket that showed a perfect pink ring. He sprayed the meat with apple juice, wrapped it at the right moment, and checked the temperature like a gentle guardian. He greeted each person with the same warm line. "Welcome in. What can I get for you today?" He knew many customers by name by the end of that week. Mrs. Green liked extra pickles. Mr. Roy always asked for more napkins and told stories about old music. A group of college kids shared a big tray and took pictures. He took a photo, too, at their request, and posted it on the restaurant's page with a simple caption, "Thank you for coming." But not everyone smiled. Across the street, inside the quiet gated neighborhood, some homeowners began to stare with tight faces. He noticed a few people standing with arms crossed, watching as cars pulled up and friends laughed at the tables. He told himself not to worry. He believed most people would understand that a small restaurant brings life to a block and helps the community. He planned to be a good neighbor. He kept the outside area clean, swept the sidewalk twice a day, and set up an extra trash bin so nothing would blow away. One afternoon, a woman in a neat suit crossed the street. She had careful hair, a polished badge that hung from a lanyard, and a clipboard. She introduced herself as the president of the Homeowners Association. She smiled, but the smile felt thin, like paper. She asked about his hours and said there had been concerns. He listened politely and said he closed early on weeknights and even earlier on Sundays. He told her he had a good ventilation system and used clean wood. He showed her the city permits posted near the door. She nodded and said, "It's important to keep everything in order." Then she glanced at the tables and said, "We prefer a quiet street." Her words were plain, but the meaning felt heavier than the sound. After she left, he walked around the restaurant and asked himself what more he could do. He added a sign, asking customers to park in the public lot down the block, not on the street in front of the homes. He moved the outdoor speaker farther inside so the soft music would not drift beyond his door. He took a deep breath and went back to the smoker, reminding himself that kindness is a strong ingredient. The next week brought more good news than worry. A local blogger wrote a small review that called his brisket "comfort on a plate." A family celebrated a birthday at the outside tables with sparkling candles in a slice of cornbread. A delivery driver started coming every Friday for a big order for his warehouse team. The smell of oak and pepper became a friendly part of the afternoon air. He still finished early each evening, and he kept the sidewalk spotless. He wanted everyone to see that a restaurant could share space with homes in a peaceful way. Still, there were small signs of trouble. A note appeared on his door one morning that said, "Too much smoke." It had no name on it. He looked up at the sky, which was clear, and then at the vents, which were working well. He checked the smoker and adjusted the dampers to run cleaner. He bought a higher-grade filter for the kitchen hood and asked the installer to double-check the airflow. He kept every receipt. At lunch that day, he gave away a few extra cornbreads just to lift his own heart. In the late afternoon, when the rush slowed, he sometimes stood in the doorway and watched the neighborhood. He loved the way sunlight made patterns on the pavement. He loved how people waved to each other. He wanted to be part of that friendly rhythm. He believed food could bring people together who might not talk otherwise. He had seen it happen at the tables. A construction worker and a school counselor chatting about sauce, two strangers nodding over a shared bottle of hot peppers, a little boy asking a retiree if he liked the beans. These small moments made him feel brave. Then a letter arrived in the mail. It was on formal letterhead from the Homeowners Association. The letter said there were complaints about odors and noise and parking. It asked him to take steps to reduce impact and mentioned possible action if the situation did not improve. He read it twice, then a third time. He felt a small knot in his stomach. He set the letter on the counter next to his blue folder of permits and took a photo of it. He wrote a reply that was simple and respectful. He explained his ventilation, his parking sign, his early closing time, and his plan to add one more filter. He walked the reply across the street and slid it into the association's office mail slot. The morning after, he woke earlier than usual. He wanted to stay ahead of any concern. He tested the smoker with a small burn before loading the meat. He stood by the flue and watched the smoke, thin and blue, drift straight up. He felt proud of how clean it looked. He brewed a fresh pot of coffee and poured a cup for the mail carrier when she came by. He told her he hoped everything would calm down. She smiled and said, "Your place makes the block feel alive." He held on to those words. By the end of that week, the regulars had turned into a small community. People started to greet each other by name at the door. Someone brought a small plant to put on the windowsill. A teenager asked if he could work part-time after school, and he smiled and said yes, and showed him how to wipe tables in straight lines. He posted a small sign that said, "Neighborhood Night, 10% off for locals," and another that said, "Thank you for supporting small business." He meant every word. Late one afternoon, as the sun folded itself behind the roofs across the street, He noticed a small group at the edge of the neighborhood gate. They were talking softly and looking toward his shop. He felt the knot in his stomach again, but he reminded himself that he was doing everything right. He checked the sidewalk, the trash bins, the parking signs, the sound level, and the posted permits. He took a picture of the dining area and saved it with the date and time. He did not know why he did this, only that it made him feel prepared. A second letter came the next day. It said there had been additional concerns and asked him to consider alternate hours. He read it carefully. He could not move his hours much more without hurting the lunch rush, and lunch was the heart of his business. He drafted another reply, again calm and respectful. He explained his schedule and offered to meet to talk through ideas. He said he cared about being a good neighbor. That evening, after he closed and cleaned the floors until they shone, he stood in the quiet and looked around the small R. The next morning began with the same careful rhythm. Lights on, water running, apron tied, a soft check of the smoker. He liked routine because it made the day feel steady. But as he flipped the open sign, he noticed a white envelope stuck under the door. It was from the Homeowners Association. The letter said there were continuing concerns about smoke and parking, and it asked him to demonstrate immediate improvements. He read it twice, then set it beside his blue folder of permits. He decided to answer with facts, kindness, and a clear plan, just as he had before. He wrote a short reply outlining his steps. New filters installed, early closing times, signs, guiding customers to the public lot, and a promise to sweep the sidewalk every afternoon. He added photos of the filters and a copy of the receipt. He walked the reply across the street and slipped it into the association's office slot. Back at the restaurant, he washed his hands and focused on the food. By noon, the room filled, with the calm joy that came when people sat down to eat. Laughter rose softly. Plates came back clean. For a while, the letter felt far away, but the pressure did not stop. 2 days later, a city noise officer visited, responding to a complaint. The officer carried a small meter and asked if he could check the sound level near the door. He was polite. The meter blinked a reading that was well below the city's limit. The officer nodded and said, "Looks fine to me." The owner thanked him, showed him the ventilation system working, and sent him off with a small bag of cornbread as a friendly gesture. The officer smiled and said, "I get why people like this place." The owner kept the visit summary in his blue folder. Soon after, parking tickets began to appear on cars near the curb, even when people were parked within the time limit. He did not argue with the parking attendant. Instead, he moved quickly to protect his customers. He made a bright sign. "Free parking in public lot on Maple, 2 minutes walk." He posted the sign at the counter and repeated the message to each person who ordered. He even created a little map that he taped to the window. It wasn't perfect, but customers appreciated the clarity, and the tickets slowed down. Then one morning he found his sidewalk sweep bin tipped over and one of his small window plants knocked down. It could have been the wind, he told himself. Still, he bought a small, simple camera for the storefront, not to accuse anyone, just to have a record. That night, the camera caught someone removing the free parking sign from the sandwich board and walking away. The person's face wasn't clear. The owner printed a screenshot, dated it, and slid it into the blue folder. He didn't share it online. He chose patience. He swept the sidewalk again and made a new sign. The online neighborhood forum started. Buzzing, too. Someone posted, "Is that BBQ place causing smoke in our street?" There were a few replies that sounded sharp. But then something beautiful happened. People who ate at his place wrote kind comments. "Their ventilation is good. I can't even smell it from the gate. They close early. They pick up trash." A teacher mentioned his discount night for locals. A nurse said the food helped her get through long shifts. The owner did not join the argument. He just read the messages late at night, humbled and grateful, and he promised himself he would keep earning that support. A surprise visit from the health inspector came next, triggered by complaints. The inspector walked through the kitchen, with a tablet, checking temperatures and storage. The owner moved beside him, answering each question clearly. The inspector measured the cooler, looked at the hand-washing sink, and peered at the clean cutting boards. When he finished, he nodded and said, "You are in good shape." He sent the approval report that afternoon. The owner printed it and pinned it to the wall near the permits. He also added a copy to the blue folder. He liked that folder. It felt like a shield made of paper and honesty. The fire department also returned to check the smoker. 2 firefighters walked around the back and studied the vents. The owner showed them his plan again. He shared the new filter schedule. "Good work," one firefighter said. "Keep doing what you're doing." The owner thanked them and offered water. They waved and left. He felt calm again for a moment. The system was working. He followed rules. He documented. He was a good neighbor. He believed good faith would show through. But that evening, just before closing, a new letter slid under the door. The tone was stronger. It used phrases like cease and desist and negative impact on property enjoyment. It referenced rules from the HOA's community handbook, as if their rules governed the entire block, including his commercial strip. He sat on a stool and read the letter carefully. He knew his shop wasn't inside the gated neighborhood. He, new city code, not the HOA handbook, guided his business. Still, he didn't throw the letter away. He placed it neatly into the folder and wrote a response that invited a meeting. The meeting took place in a small HOA office with frosted glass and quiet air. The HOA president sat at the head of a table with 2 board members. The owner arrived early, carrying copies of permits and reports in his folder. He smiled and thanked them for the meeting. He spoke in a calm voice. He explained his ventilation, his hours, the parking guidance, and his plan for continued improvements. The president listened with a polite expression. When he finished, she said, "We appreciate the information. We still prefer a quieter street." He repeated his respect for the neighborhood and asked for specific concerns he could solve. The board said they would consider options and get back to him. To build more goodwill, the owner created a neighbor listening hour at 4 p.m. on Wednesdays. He served lemonade, iced tea, and tiny bites of cornbread. He invited anyone to share concerns. A retired man came in with a notebook and said the smoke sometimes drifted during a certain breeze. The owner noted the time of day and promised to adjust the damper earlier on windy afternoons. A mother mentioned parking during school pickup. The owner made a sign asking daytime customers to avoid the curb from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. A young woman suggested a bike rack. He asked the landlord and got permission to install one. These small steps felt hopeful. His landlord remained steady through it all. The landlord stopped by, patted the counter, and said, "Your lease is good. You've done everything right. Keep your records. Keep your calm." The owner nodded. That night, he added 2 new sections to his folder. One for community feedback, one for improvements made. He printed the listening hour notes and dated them. He was not trying to fight. He was trying to care for a shared street. The next wave came as a stack of complaints filed with different city departments on the same day: noise, smoke, trash, and food handling. The timing felt planned. Inspectors came again, one by one. Each person carried a checklist. Each person left satisfied. One even said, "Someone is really going after you." The owner smiled gently and replied, "My job is to cook and follow rules." When the day ended, he sat alone for a minute, tired but grounded. He looked around at the clean counters, the neat spice shelf, the quiet smoker, and he felt grateful for the simple, strong things he could control. Business kept him going. A choir group from a nearby church started coming after rehearsal for sandwiches. A crew from a hardware store bought a big tray every Friday. A pair of friends made it their weekly ritual to split a brisket plate and talk about life at the corner table. These people turned the restaurant into more than a shop. They made it a small, steady heartbeat for the block. The owner greeted them by name and asked about their days. He believed relationships were the real walls and roof around his work. More letters came, firmer now, repeating impact, nuisance, and non-compliance. The last letter added a clear warning. If the restaurant did not voluntarily suspend operations by a certain date, the HOA would seek enforcement with appropriate authorities. The date was a week away. The owner read the sentence 3 times. He felt a quiet line draw itself through his day. He put the letter into the folder, closed the folder, and exhaled. Then he did what he always did. He checked the cooler temperatures, labeled the sauces, and made sure his sinks were spotless. He also reached out for help. A legal aid clinic for small businesses offered a free consultation. He brought the blue folder and set it on the table in front of a calm attorney with curious eyes. The attorney flipped through the permits, the inspection reports, the photos, and the letters. "You're organized," the attorney said, "and this is important. The HOA does not govern your business location. City code and your lease do. Keep doing what you're doing. If they escalate, we'll be ready with a simple, firm response." The owner thanked the attorney and left with a clear piece of advice. Document everything and stay respectful. He added one more step. He trained his small team, 2 part-time helpers, on how to greet anyone who came in with a complaint. Be calm, be kind, offer water, ask for a name and a number, then come get me. He placed a laminated sheet behind the counter with emergency contacts, including the legal aid clinic. He checked that his phone had plenty of storage for photos and video, just in case. He wasn't looking for conflict. He was preparing for clarity. The week moved forward quickly. Each day he cooked with care and visited the door to make sure. The sidewalk was clean. He waved at the mail carrier, thanked delivery drivers, and kept the outdoor music soft. He stood by the smoker. The day of the deadline arrived bright and clear. He woke before his alarm and stood at the window for a moment, watching the early light touch the roofs across the street. He felt steady. He had done his work, set his signs, checked every filter, and filed every paper. He brewed coffee, tied his apron, and walked to the shop with his blue folder under his arm like a promise. When he lifted the metal gate and flipped on the lights, the room welcomed him with quiet, warm air and the clean scent of soap. He touched the smoker, checked the dampers, and lit the small starter fire the way he had practiced 100 times. The first curl of thin blue smoke rose straight up. It looked like a clean pencil line drawn against the sky. He kept his morning simple. He sliced onions, set out buns, and warmed a pan of beans until they bubbled in slow, gentle breaths. He wrote the specials on the chalkboard in clear letters. He took a quick photo of the sidewalk, the parking map, and the posted permits, and saved them on his phone with a date and time. It was a habit now, not fear, just careful record-keeping. The first customers came by 10:30, a painter with white speckles on his boots and a teacher with a bright scarf. He greeted them with his usual line, "Welcome in. What can I get for you today?" and felt his shoulders relax when they smiled. By noon, the place was busy. The lunchtime rhythm felt like music, the soft tap of the knife on the cutting. Bored, the low talk of people choosing sides, the scrape of a chair, the ping of the register. Children pointed at the cornbread. A pair of office workers shared a big tray and laughed about who would take the last rib. The owner moved like a careful dancer, checking temperatures, slicing brisket with even strokes, moving from grill to counter with a calm step. He loved this part of the day because it made the world feel simple. Cook well, serve kindly, keep the place clean. Across the street, a small group stood near the gate of the neighborhood. He recognized the HOA president by the neat suit and clipboard. 2 other board members stood with her. They watched the tables with calm faces that gave nothing away. He breathed in, then out. He had offered meetings. He had shown every permit. He reminded himself that good work speaks even when people do not. At 12:15, a sound cut through the hum of lunch. It was the quick rise of sirens from far away, followed by silence, and then the steady roll of two cars pulling to the curb. Lights flashed red and blue in the edge of the window. People at the tables fell quiet and turned their heads. The owner looked up, set down his knife, and wiped his hands slowly. He walked to the door and stood with his palms open at his sides, his face calm. Two officers stepped in. One was tall, with a short haircut and a firm jaw. The other was smaller, carrying a notepad. The tall officer's voice was even but strong. "We've received multiple complaints about this business. We need to pause operations for an inspection and verification." The owner nodded. "Welcome," he said softly. "I have all my permits posted here. I'm happy to step outside and talk." He motioned to the wall where the health report and fire check hung in neat rows. He kept his tone friendly, not to please anyone, but to keep the room settled. Some customers reached for their phones, not with loud words, not with a crowd mood, just a quiet instinct to record what was happening. The owner didn't mind. He believed in light. He asked his helpers to pause orders and keep the kitchen in holding mode. He told a family at the corner table that their food was on the house today, no matter what, and thanked them for their patience. Outside, the air felt warm and still. The HOA president was nearby now, watching with a careful expression. The tall officer asked for the owner's name and ID. The owner handed over his driver's license and the blue folder. The small officer flipped through the pages, checking the permits and inspection notes. The tall officer spoke into his radio with short, clear words. The owner stood steady. His heart beat fast, but his face showed peace. He had learned that calm is a kind of shield. The tall officer looked up and said, "We have information that there may be violations affecting the neighborhood." The owner answered gently, "I understand you received calls. I have complied with city code and passed recent inspections. Would you like to speak with the health inspector or the fire marshal who cleared me?" He lifted a page that listed names and numbers. The smaller officer read the list and wrote down two contacts. A brief pause followed, like a held breath. Then the tall officer said in a stronger voice, "Do not serve another plate until we complete verification." The tone was sharp, but the owner did not push back. "I'll pause service," he replied. "My customers' safety and comfort matter. May I let them know what's happening?" The officer nodded once. Inside, the owner spoke clearly to the room. "Friends, we are taking a short break to work with the officers. Thank you for your patience. If you need to go, your meals are on me today. If you can wait, I appreciate you." Murmurs rose, soft, supportive. Someone called out, "We'll wait." Someone else said, "We've seen your permits." The owner felt the room's kindness like a hand on his shoulder. The landlord arrived, breath a little short from walking fast. He shook the owner's hand and greeted the officers politely. "I'm the landlord," he said. "This is a permitted food business on a commercial strip outside HOA jurisdiction." His tone was simple, not showy. He had brought his own folder, with the lease and the city zoning map. The small officer took a photo of the map with a department phone. The tall officer stepped to the side to make a call. The owner used the moment to call the legal aid clinic. He put the attorney on speaker for a few minutes. The attorney's voice was calm. "Ask for a written notice if they require a pause," she said. "Ask which code section the pause is under. Document everything. Keep kindness first." The owner thanked her. He turned back to the officers with a steady face. Inside the shop, people waited quietly. A little boy asked his mom if the cornbread would be okay. She smiled and said, "Yes, it's resting." The helpers wiped counters and reset napkins, keeping their hands busy. One of them whispered, "We're okay." The owner nodded. He knew work can hold a person steady the way a railing holds a foot on a stair. After several minutes, the tall officer returned. He looked like a man working to balance two truths, the calls he had received, and the papers in his hand. "We're going to post a temporary notice to suspend operations for today while we confirm the permits and ventilation plan," he said. "This is not a citation at this time." The words dropped into the quiet like small stones. The owner took a breath and asked, "May I have that notice in writing with the code reference?" The small officer nodded and started to fill out a form. The tall officer's face stayed firm. "Do not restart service today," he said. "Continuing could lead to serious consequences." The tone carried weight, but the owner did not let fear decide his next minute. He said, "I will follow the instruction for today. I request a prompt review." They taped the notice by the door. The HOA president watched, then stepped closer and said, "We hope this resolves the impact on our residents." The landlord answered gently, "We hope the review respects the law." The owner thanked everyone for their time and opened the door for the officers as they left. He did not want any scene. He believed in closing a door with good manners, even when his stomach felt tight. He turned to the room. "Friends," he said, "we will close for the day to cooperate with this review. Please take a card if you're willing to share your name and number as a witness that we run a clean shop. Your meal is on me today. I am grateful for you." A line formed, not for food now, but for support. People wrote their names and contact info. A nurse said, "You keep it clean." A teacher said, "You close early and keep the sidewalk neat." The family with the little boy left a small note on the counter that read, "We'll be back." He and his helpers cleaned as if it were the end of the night, not the middle of the day. They wrapped the meat carefully and cooled it safely. They labeled and stored everything. He took photos of the posted notice, the permits, the clean kitchen, and the quiet smoker. He printed the timeline of the day from his phone notes and slid it into the blue folder. He made a list of every person who had offered to be a witness, with times and short notes like "sat at corner table" and "stood in line at 12:10. When the door finally closed and the lights dimmed, he sat on a stool and let the quiet settle. He did not feel loud anger. He felt a steady focus, like the low coal bed that keeps a fire ready. He called the attorney back and read the notice line by line. She said, "We will request immediate confirmation from the city. We will also file a complaint about improper pressure if the facts support it. You've done the right thing today." He thanked her and then called his landlord to coordinate next steps. They agreed to meet in the morning with copies of maps and reports. As the afternoon faded, small signs of support appeared. Someone slid a card under the door that said, "We believe in you." A plant showed up on the windowsill with a note, "For the corner that feeds us." The choir leader sent a text, "We know your place is in order. We recorded what happened." He felt his chest loosen at these simple gifts. He wrote thank you replies and promised to update everyone as soon as he had news. He also saved a copy of the storefront camera video. It showed the arrival, the pause, and the calm conversations. There were no loud moments. He woke before sunrise with a steady heart and a clear plan. The blue folder lay on his kitchen table like a quiet teammate. He made tea, checked his notes, and walked to the restaurant with one thought in his mind: move step by step. When he lifted the gate and turned on the lights, the room answered with its clean shine. He took photos again, the posted permits, the ventilation filters, the quiet smoker, the empty, swept sidewalk. He saved each picture with the date and time. He believed that truth shines best when it is neat and organized. At 9 o'clock, the landlord arrived with a roll of maps and a firm, friendly smile. "Zoning map, lease copy, and the letter from the city confirming this block is commercial," the landlord said, tapping the roll. The owner nodded and thanked him. A few minutes later, the attorney from the small business clinic walked in, a calm presence with a simple bag. She shook their hands, spread papers on a table, and said, "We'll send 3 things this morning: a request to the city for written confirmation that you are in compliance, a letter asking the police department to clarify that yesterday's pause is reviewed, and a cease and desist letter to the HOA for interference. Then we'll be ready for court if needed. They worked like a small, well-tuned team. The attorney drafted letters with clear language and attached copies of inspection reports, the timeline of the pause day, and witness names who had offered to help. The landlord signed a short statement that the business was lawful under the lease and the zoning for the strip. The owner added printouts of the health and fire approvals and the photo of the posted notice. He used sticky tabs to mark each section. The attorney smiled. "This folder," she said, "is a story told by facts." By late morning, replies began to arrive. The health department emailed a short note. "No violations on file. Recent inspection passed." The fire department sent a similar line. "Ventilation plan reviewed and acceptable." The attorney printed the emails and slipped them into the folder. She called the police community liaison and calmly shared the documents. "We will review and follow up in writing," the liaison said. Community support flowed in like warm sunlight. The choir leader brought a card that said, "We stand with you." The teacher left a list of parents willing to speak about the quiet evenings and clean sidewalk. A local blogger asked if he could share the story. The owner thanked everyone and said he would share updates only after he had official answers. He wanted calm, not noise. He wanted facts to do the talking. At noon, the city invited them to a meeting the next day. Code compliance, a representative from the health department, the police liaison, the landlord, the owner, the attorney, and the HOA board. "It's a coordination meeting," the email said. "We aim to resolve confusion." The owner read it twice and felt his shoulders drop a little. A room full of people can be hard, but a room full of people can also clear air that has grown cloudy. He spent the afternoon preparing a simple packet for each person who would attend. A cover page, a one-page timeline, copies of permits, a photo sheet showing the clean smoke, the parking sign, and the bike rack, and a page of small changes he had already made after listening to neighbors. Earlier damper adjustments on windy days, the sign, to avoid the curb during school pickup, the added filter schedule. He wrote at the top, "Our shared street, our shared care." He meant it, and the words calmed him. That evening, he posted a short update on the restaurant page. "Meeting, scheduled with city offices to resolve questions. Thank you for your kindness. We remain patient and hopeful." He did not mention names or point fingers. He did not want to make a storm on the internet. He wanted a clear sky for the meeting. The next day, the conference room felt quiet and bright. The code officer started with a simple sentence. "We have reviewed permits. The business is compliant." The health inspector added, "No outstanding issues." The fire representative said, "Vent plan acceptable. We'll do a courtesy site visit in 30 days as part of our routine safety checks." The police liaison spoke carefully. "We received many calls at once," he said. "Our officers paused service to verify. In light of the documents, we will issue a letter confirming that the business may operate. Future calls will be triaged and, when appropriate, routed to the correct department." The attorney thanked them and slid a zoning map forward. "This strip is outside HOA governance," she said softly. The landlord pointed to the bold line on the map. "Commercial here. HOA ends at this gate." The HOA president listened with a composed face. "Our residents have concerns," she said. "We prefer less impact." The owner nodded. "I hear that," he said. "I have made changes based on feedback. I'm willing to do more within reason. I can explore an additional air scrubber for windy days." The health inspector said an air scrubber would be optional, not required, but could help as a community gesture. The owner wrote it down. The code officer turned to the HOA. "Please direct concerns to our office, not to private pressure. We will handle them according to code." The meeting ended with handshakes. The police liaison promised a written letter by the afternoon. The owner exhaled. On the sidewalk outside, he, the landlord, and the attorney stood in a small circle. "This was good," the attorney said, "but we should still be ready. If interference continues, we file in court." The owner nodded. He did not want a fight, but he would protect his work with steady steps and clear documents. By 3 o'clock, the police letter arrived. Based on documentation and departmental reviews, Corner Flame BBQ is permitted to operate. Any future concerns will be routed to relevant city departments. The temporary pause of service on date is closed pending no further findings. The attorney printed it. The owner took a photo of it taped beside his permits. He texted the picture to his small team with a simple line, "Reopening tomorrow." He reopened with gratitude rather than noise. The chalkboard read, "Thank you, neighbors." He offered a small welcome back special and a pay it forward board where customers could buy a future sandwich for someone who needed it. The first day back felt like a deep breath. People ordered calmly, smiled warmly, and left notes like, "Glad you're here," and "The street feels right again." He cooked with the same care as always, checked the damper on a breezy hour, and kept the sidewalk neat. He felt the room hum with that good, everyday music he loved. Knife on board, soft talk, and the quiet clink of water glasses. A week passed, in peace. Then another HOA letter arrived. It did not mention the city's letter. It repeated phrases about impact, and now added a line about private enforcement remedies. The attorney read it and set it down. "We've been patient and respectful," she said. "It's time to ask a judge to protect your right to operate." She drafted a lawsuit that afternoon with clear, simple counts: interference with business relations, misrepresentation in complaints, and a request for an injunction to prevent further improper actions. She attached the full record: permits, inspection approvals, the police letter, the timeline, screenshots from the storefront camera, and witness statements. She also included email records obtained through public channels that showed HOA board members sending repeated unfounded complaints to departments after being told the business was compliant. Filing day felt like another kind of opening. The owner did not want a courtroom, but he understood that a court is also a kind of kitchen, a place where ingredients, facts, documents, testimonies are measured, ordered, and tested. He dressed neatly, brought the blue folder, and sat beside his attorney with a calm face. The courtroom was small and bright. The judge listened more than he spoke. The attorney presented a clear path. City confirms compliance. Health and fire confirm compliance. Police confirm operations may continue. The HOA has no jurisdiction over this strip. Yet there is a pattern of pressure and unfounded complaints. We ask for a temporary injunction to protect a lawful small business from further interference. The landlord showed the zoning map and the lease. The health inspector gave a short statement. No violations. The noise officer testified readings were within limits. The HOA attorney spoke about resident comfort and enjoyment and about a desire for a quieter block. The judge asked a simple question. Do you have a legal basis to control this business? The HOA attorney referred to general community rules, but the judge nodded toward the map and the city letters. Those rules end at the gate, he said gently. Witnesses spoke softly, with care. A nurse talked about clean counters and early closing times. A teacher described the owner's listening hour and the signs guiding parking to the public lot. The choir leader said, "We come after rehearsal and always see the sidewalk clean." Each person's words felt like small stones building a sturdy path. The judge took a break to read. When he returned, his voice was measured. "I am granting a temporary injunction," he said. "The HOA shall refrain from actions that directly or indirectly interfere with the lawful operation of Corner Flame BBQ. Concerns, if any, must be addressed through the appropriate city channels. The parties are encouraged to continue dialogue. A status conference is set for 30 days from today." The owner felt a gentle warmth move through his chest. Not a shout of victory, but a deep, steady relief. Outside the courthouse, he stood with his attorney and landlord. They did not cheer. They shook hands and smiled. "Keep records," the attorney said. "Key." The weeks after the injunction felt like a new season. The restaurant breathed again. People came in with gentle smiles, and the street looked calm and friendly. He kept his rhythm steady: early mornings, clean counters, careful cooking, and a polite word for everyone who stepped inside. He also kept his records clear and updated. The blue folder grew thicker, not with worry now, but with fresh pages. Daily logs, a copy of the court order, thank you notes from neighbors, and a simple plan for community events. Every Wednesday, he still held the neighbor listening hour. It had started as a bridge, and now it became a bright habit. He poured lemonade and iced tea. He offered small squares of cornbread on napkins. People shared ideas, and he wrote them down. A trash pickup after school hours, a bigger arrow on the parking map, and a stack of paper menus near the door to help folks decide before joining the line. These were small things, but he believed small things are how a street learns to share space. He made changes quickly and recorded them on a new one-page sheet called "What We Did This Week." In the background, the legal case moved forward in patient steps. The attorney kept him, updated in simple words. "We will ask the court to make the temporary order permanent," she said. "We will also ask for reasonable damages for the day you were forced to pause and for the extra costs you carried because of the pressure." He nodded each time. He wanted fairness, not punishment. He wanted a gentle, strong line drawn by the court that everyone could see and respect. On a bright morning, he and the attorney returned to the courthouse for a longer hearing. The judge remembered the case and greeted both sides with calm eyes. The attorney presented the stack of proofs again, now organized into a neat binder: the permits, the past inspections, the police letter that confirmed operations, the zoning map, the timeline of calls, and the messages showing that complaints had continued even after the city cleared him. She spoke softly, with respect for everyone in the room. "We ask for clarity and protection," she said. "This business adds value to the street. The record shows compliance with all laws. We ask the court to prevent further interference and to grant modest compensation for the harm caused." Witnesses returned with the same steady kindness. The nurse talked about clean counters and early closing hours. The teacher explained how the owner guided cars to the public lot and even posted signs for school pickup time. The choir leader spoke about the peaceful evenings and the soft music kept inside. The landlord pointed to the zoning line on the big map again and said, "This is commercial property. The lease is in order. The city approvals are in order." Each statement felt like a brick set into place with quiet hands. The HOA's attorney spoke about resident comfort again, but the judge asked direct questions. "Do you claim authority over this business under any law?" the judge said. The HOA attorney paused and shook his head. "No, Your Honor." The judge nodded. "Then concerns should be channeled to the city, not to private enforcement," he said. The court took a short break. The owner stood in the hallway with his attorney. He held the blue folder like a familiar friend and took a long, slow breath. When they returned, the judge read from a written order. His voice was measured, almost gentle. He said the court would enter a permanent injunction preventing the HOA from actions that directly or indirectly interfered with the lawful operation of the restaurant. He said the record showed a pattern of pressure without jurisdiction. He added that the court would award compensation for the day of forced pause, the extra compliance costs, and the attorney's fees. The amount was fair and clear, not huge, but not small. It felt like the court had measured each part as carefully as a recipe and handed back a balanced plate. He did not cheer. He closed his eyes for a second and said, "Thank you," in a voice that sounded like a quiet hand on a table. The attorney squeezed his shoulder. "You did this with patience and good records," she said. He smiled. "Good heat, good wood, and time," he replied, and they both laughed softly because they knew the line by heart now. News of the order spread through the block, not as a shout, but as a calm note. People came in and said, "We heard," and "Glad for you," and "This is right." He kept cooking. He kept the music soft. He kept the sidewalk neat and the bike rack clear. He added one more filter to the ventilation system, not because he had to, but because he wanted the air to feel as clear as the court's words. A week later, something he did not expect happened. The HOA president asked for a short meeting at the restaurant during a quiet hour. The landlord and the attorney joined him at a table. The president spoke plainly. "We will follow the order," she said. "We did not handle this well. I apologize for the stress caused." Her voice was careful, and she looked tired in a human way. He listened without holding on to old heat. "Thank you," he said. "We will keep our listening hour open to anyone with ideas." The president nodded. "We will direct concerns to the city from now on," she replied. It was not a friendship. It was something quieter and maybe more useful, a shared understanding written in both paper and practice. With the case settled, the owner turned his full attention to the work he loved. He created a community plate program. Every week, a few meals were set aside, prepaid by kind neighbors for anyone who needed one. People added to the board without fuss. A delivery driver who had struggled 1 month used a ticket and later came back to pay one forward. A student saved lunch. Money by using a ticket and left a thank you note in careful handwriting. "This helped me study better." The restaurant felt like a warm corner again, the way he had dreamed it would be. He also hired 2 teens from the neighborhood as part-time helpers. He taught them the basics: wash hands, label everything, keep a clean board, and greet each person with a real hello. On quiet afternoons, he showed them how to tell when the meat was ready by feel, not just by numbers. "Patience," he said, pressing the surface gently. "Good heat, good wood, and time." He named them on a little chalk sign near the register. Today's team, Jasmine and Leo. Their parents came by to take photos. The police liaison stopped in one day for lunch. He bought a sandwich and asked softly if he could sit at the counter. "I wanted to make sure things are peaceful," he said. "They are," the owner replied. The liaison nodded. "We updated our internal note on this address to route non-emergency calls to the right departments," he said. "We want to use the correct channels." The owner thanked him and offered a small bag of cornbread for the station. Simple kindness traveled more easily than long speeches. On the first anniversary of opening, he planned a small celebration. He called it Shared Street Day. He set up a long table with paper and pens so neighbors could write one sentence about what they love on the block. He put out lemonade and small bites. He invited the school band to play a few cheerful songs. He put his father's words on the chalkboard in tidy script. Good heat, good wood, and time. Beneath it, he added his own line. Good records, good neighbors, and patience. People smiled when they read it. Some pointed and nodded as if they too had learned that a steady hand with simple tools can carry a dream through storms. Not long after, a local paper published a short piece about the restaurant's journey. The reporter did not use sharp language. She wrote about steady work, fair rules, and a small business that followed the process and won. She wrote about neighbors who chose to help rather than argue, and a street that found its balance. The story brought new visitors who wanted to taste the brisket they had read about, but it also brought something better. A gentle respect for the way the place had held itself in hard days. With the modest compensation from the case, he made 2 investments. First, he bought a second smoker of the same make, not bigger, just a twin. He set it up with the same clean venting plan, knowing the city would approve it easily now. Second, He started a tiny scholarship fund for a student interested in culinary school. It was one grant, not large, but it felt like planting a small tree. He announced it at the counter with a simple card. For someone who wants to cook with care. The first recipient was a shy senior who loved baking and came in on Saturdays to ask questions about temperature and timing. When she received the scholarship, she cried quietly into her sleeve, then laughed and promised to send pictures of her first class. Every evening, he still did the same small, important tasks, checking cooler temperatures, folding napkins in simple squares, and making sure the free parking sign faced the right way. He kept a new page in the blue folder called Thank You, where he slipped small notes from customers and staff. He liked the feeling of that page. It reminded him that gratitude is also a kind of order. Sometimes, as he wiped a counter or refilled a water jar, he thought about that day when the lights had flashed and everything had paused. He remembered how people waited quietly, how the landlord showed up with the map, how the attorney's voice stayed calm, and how a little boy asked if the cornbread would be okay. He smiled at that memory because he knew that kindness, like a good recipe, shows up again and again if you make room for it. One night, as he closed the door and turned the key, his father called. "How is the corner?" his father asked. "Alive," he said. "Balanced. Shared." He told his father about the permanent order, the apology, the scholarship. "Oh,